This is a 2006 Chevy Silverado. The owner told me the light on the dash came on, so he took it to AutoZone and they told him it needs a starter, which does not make any sense. Something has to have been lost in translation, or maybe I just misheard him. So it does have codes. O2 signal low, bank 2 sensor 2. Fuel system rich bank 1, rich bank 2. Heated O2 sensor performance, bank 2 sensor 2. So it's looking like it probably has a bad oxygen sensor. I don't know where the starter came from. The truck starts fine. Generator battery control module. What is that for? I don't know. If he wants the check engine light turned off, I think we're probably looking at a O2 sensor though. Strange that the monitor has passed. Alright, well, U codes are usually communication codes. We're not going to worry too much about that. I don't know what the generator battery control module U1305 is. Let's see if we can diagnose this O2 sensor though. Looks okay so far. Fire it up. Looks pretty normal. Converters are cold, so it's showing switching on both. I don't know, are we in closed loop? Not yet. Okay, so they're starting to steady out. Converters are warming up. Looks fine so far. Still in open loop. Well, yeah, that might be our problem. Alright, well, I'm going to let it run for a little bit. We'll see if it goes to closed loop. But it looks like we probably have a fuel alcohol content problem. This is a flex fuel truck, apparently. Okay, we're in closed loop. So bank 1 sensor 2 is rock solid. But bank 2 sensor 2 is kind of all over the place. So is that a bad catalytic converter, or is that a bad O2 sensor? Kind of looks like a bad O2 sensor. Doesn't look too bad right now. A little twitchy on bank 2, but it's in the ballpark. So we should have switching on the upstream O2 sensors. The switching from lean to rich is required to make the catalytic converter work. And then after the converter on sensor 2, it should be solid. Bank 1's working fine. Bank 2, not so much. But it's not bad enough to set a PO 420 or 430, which would indicate a bad converter. So fuel trims are negative. It's taking away fuel. It thinks the engine is too rich. So that could be from the O2 sensor, or more likely that's from the alcohol content. Super common problem on this vintage of GM. These flex fuel engines, they don't have a sensor for alcohol content. If you make a lot of short trips or kind of drive abnormally, the alcohol content can creep up. So the higher alcohol fuel, like E85, is basically less potent. So it's trying to dump more of it in there to make up for the increased alcohol content. And in turn, it's making it run rich. At least that's my interpretation of it. Yeah, bank 2, sensor 2 is goofing up again. It was down to 373. See, this one looks like it's all over the place, but you got to look at the range. It's only moving 20 millivolts, 22. This one, almost 300. I think I've seen enough. We're going to order an O2 sensor. Well, I had a little chat with the customer. He told me the reason they took it to AutoZone was that the battery light was on, not the check engine light. And if you look, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but battery light is on, just very, very faintly, right up above the voltmeter there. So I don't know what's up with that. It's charging just fine, it says 14.5 on the gauge. Why is the light on like that? Nothing wrong with that. I don't know. Pretty weird. The key is definitely off, and the modules should all be asleep. I don't know if you can see it, but the battery light is still on, very faintly. That is very weird. Here's the charging system. And if you're thinking this looks way too complicated, you are not wrong. There's no physical connection between the battery light and the regulator. So in the old days, the battery light got power from the key and it got a ground from the voltage regulator. And when the regulator turned on and started doing its thing, it would turn off the ground and turn off the battery light. If the light came back on, that meant there's a problem with the regulator. I don't know why it's a battery light and not an alternator light, but that doesn't really matter. On this truck, it's a lot more complicated because computers, I guess. The computer controls the voltage regulator through this generator battery control module. And the only signal to the battery light is this class 2 serial data, ones and zeros, from the module to the instrument panel. So I think that means we can rule out a problem with the alternator and probably a problem with this module, but we can check that to be sure. I don't know, this is pretty complicated. I mean, this truck's 18 years old, it's only gotten worse. So one thing we can do, the instrument panel is basically a module, and we should be able to see data. Not there. Not there. There we go. So it is not requesting the battery light. It says off. I am 99% sure the battery is fine and the alternator is fine. I did find one little problem though. That doesn't look too good. Looks like one of our snack stealing friends set up shop on top of the fuse box. Made a big old mess out of it. So I'm going to mask up and blow that out real quick. Just make sure that we're not backfeeding through some of these open terminals. But I think we're dealing with a cluster problem. An instrument panel problem. I don't know what else it could be. That's a little better. I think somebody sprayed the fuses with oil or grease, so it's still kind of messy, but that actually, I think, is a good thing. It saved the fuse box from getting all corroded. Well, that might slow them down for a little bit. It certainly won't stop them. And the battery light is still on. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and pull out the cluster. I don't know if this is really a problem. I mean, the alternator is working fine. And the battery light still seems to work. You know, when you turn the key on, it flashes up like normal. But it shouldn't be glowing all the time. Yeah. Alright, I'll peel that out of there. I won't record that. There's not much to it. Pop the fascia off. A couple of screws. I'm starting to think getting the lens off might be the hardest part of this job. There we go. So I don't know what the scientific approach to this is, but what I always do is just move the needles down to their lowest position, pull out my phone, and snap a picture. Maybe that was not a necessary step. Okay, we're in. I mean, of course, I don't see anything really wrong. I know that a common problem on these clusters has to do with the lead-free solder that they use. guess the solder corrodes and kind of forms conductive bridges. Does anybody see a problem here? Because I sure don't. That's the battery LED. It gets power from this linear voltage regulator. It gets a ground through this current limiting resistor from this shift register. That all seems fine. With the key off, there shouldn't be any power here because the regulator is switched on by this transistor. There shouldn't be any ground here because the shift register, it's going to need power and signal from the computer to do its thing. So the only possible explanation, other than some kind of paranormal activity, is maybe some dust or dirt formed a conductive bridge, as it takes basically no current to turn this LED on. So this is just my meter in continuity mode. Puts out like, I don't know if it's 3 volts and basically 0 amps, but it's plenty to turn that LED on. I mean, I don't see any problem with any solder joints or anything like that. I know that's kind of a problem on these boards. I might go through and tune them up just a little bit, but I think all I'm going to do is clean it up and put it back together. There's nothing wrong. I brought the circuit board back out to the truck and plugged it in, and wouldn't you know, it has magically fixed itself. So that's fun. Nice and blurry picture of the gauge locations. I think we can figure it out though. There it is. I'll tell you one thing, they sure make it easy to get the cluster out. I wish every vehicle was like that. You can have it out of there in about 5 minutes. Okay, let's quit chasing ghosts and move on to something else. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and swap out the downstream O2 sensor on bank 2, so it'll be bank 2 sensor 2, which on your General Motors product will be the passenger side. Oh yeah, look at that. Kind of have a feeling I've replaced this before. I know we should do more extensive testing. Check for power and ground and signal to the ECM and all that, but it's kind of wet. That's weird. Does not smell like fuel. It's got to be water. Condensation? Anyway, I know we should do more extensive testing, but it's doing something. It's just not doing enough of the right things. So pretty much got to be the sensor. I certainly don't advocate, being a parts changer, but it's kind of an interesting problem from an economics standpoint. Labor costs have gotten so insane that it's now, in a lot of cases, cheaper just to throw parts at it than it is to do the diagnosis. Which is kind of sad, but that's where we're at. That's it. Nothing to it. This truck's really in pretty good shape, especially for a 2006 in our area. I did spot another problem though. Check out this inner tie rod joint. Don't think it's supposed to do that. I'm not going to replace it though, because he'll have to have an alignment, and it's better just to let the alignment shop do it. Now, we used to have a shop close by that did alignments and it wasn't a big deal, but now, you know, the closest place that can do it is 15 miles away. It's not worth the time that it takes to shuttle it back and forth. I've kind of learned to pick my battles with front end repairs. Anyway, let's see if our O2 sensor has improved the situation. So we're going to reset the alcohol content. So I believe it's under functional tests, output controls, and then it's hidden somewhere in here. There we go, fuel composition reset. Okay, and then it puts us back into the fuel trim live data, which is handy. So let's go ahead and fire it up. And we'll watch our O2 sensors. Better crack the door open. We don't want Max getting squirrely. And we can already see it's better. So bank 1 has steadied out about 750, and our new sensor, bank 2, steady about 750. That's what it should do. Let's see if it'll go into closed loop. Okay, I screwed up. I don't know if you saw, there was a little box up here that said reset. You have to hit that box in order to finish the alcohol relearn procedure. And I think that was keeping it out of closed loop, because as soon as I did that, it dropped into closed loop. Everything looks pretty good. So 750 millivolts, that's fine for downstream O2s. Fuel trims are pretty reasonable. I think we're going to ship it. Battery light is out. I don't have a great explanation for that, but I'm not going to futz around with it forever. Truck's fixed. We're done. Just a quick follow-up. I know you guys like closure. This is the 2018 Chevy Cruze I mentioned in my last video. It's got the little 1.4 liter turbo engine. It has a terrible kind of scraping, scratching, screeching sound anytime the engine is running. It gets worse the higher the RPMs go. I took the serpentine belt off and ran it. The sound was still there. So I thought for sure it was going to have a bad timing chain, or maybe the mechanical vacuum pump, or even the mechanical high pressure fuel pump. This is a GDI engine. But that is not the case. That's the starter, obviously. And it is currently engaged, which it should not be. There's our scraping sound. That ain't gonna work. Looks like it's just been replaced. It definitely has that Chinese reman look to it. That's what it should look like. Much better. Okay, let me finish this up. Why is he staying in the car?
He wants to go up.
On the lift? Mm-hmm. Is that safe?
You're the engineer.
Okay. Max, I'm skeptical. Okay, lady, you need tires, but you're good to go. Give us an outro.
Well.
Thanks for watching.
Oh, thanks for watching.